you wanna bet that I can get you back inside your head before the summer ends and spread a little love. Just for a little fun, I'll make you come back to me before the rise of every sun. Baby, it's meant to be, I know you got a man, but he don't understand. You're gonna be a heartbreaker, you're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette, 'cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. Rhythm in our love, it's impressive, excessive. You can't make this stuff up. My chest beats, it's restless, wakes the neighbors up above. Yeah, baby, come and show me love. Baby, come and show me love, because you're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette, 'cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah.
All right, folks, that's enough of that. Welcome to Inside the Numbers with the People's Pundit. I'm your host, Rich Barris, the People's Pundit. Follow me on Truth and Getter at People's Pundit and on Twitter at People's_Pundit. Of course, the best way to follow me is right below peoplespundit.locals.com. All right, speaking of which, let's get into the national polling. All right, and we're gonna have a guest on today. I think so. It looks like. To wrap this all up, I thought this would be a good themed show here because pre-Labor Day, I told you it would be very important we get out there and see what's going on before Labor Day, okay? And we did. All right, so let me just, locals, we did a little sneak peek live stream yesterday, or what was it? No, Monday. And let's get into what, now that I've had more of a chance to look at it, everybody's done, they handed it in, submitted it, we're done. The sample size for this last poll is 22. It's going to be maybe, I don't know, when I'm done with the likely voter, maybe it'll go down somewhat. But we collected about 2,100 online, about 300 on SMS, and maybe the sample size is 22, 21, something like that, okay? Right now with the raking alone, which is, we'll talk more about weighting. I get a lot of questions about weighting, and we'll talk more about specific methods of weighting, why we do what we do, without trying to give away the secret sauce. We'll do that, and we'll talk about what it looks like just flat out now that I'm looked at. Now that I have just done some basic, weighting through just raking, all right, which I'll explain to you in a second, it does look like the generic ballot is tightened to me quite a bit. Now, there's a difference why it has. It is not... if you look at by region and by area type, by education, by party is a little bit, it obfuscates it a little bit. All that's happened here, no big, someone else blowing up. Democrats certainly have not gained on the generic ballot. Republicans have fallen on the generic ballot. They have moved previously from people who indicated they wanted to vote Republican to undecided or I don't know if I'm going to vote. So I hate to say I told you so, but I choose it. This is not about mind changing or Roe v. Wade, the Dobbs decision overturning Roe v. Wade. That's a load of nonsense. And in fact, do I have most important issue? I can show you with just basic raking what most important issues looks like right now, okay? And abortion, has it risen? Yes, but it's risen because of Democrats. Liberal educated voters choosing abortion now as opposed to choosing something like healthcare. Or a couple months ago, foreign policy because Ukraine was a big deal to them. Or gun safety, which was a big deal about a month after Ukraine, right? This one may have a little bit more staying power as far as what they intend to vote on, but by no means are independents rushing, or even moderate Republicans rushing to abortion as an issue because of the Dobbs decision. That simply is not happening. Not seeing that happen. All right. And then speaking of most important issues, there's some interesting stuff here. So there is a response bias for Republicans. I think we managed to deal with it at least, better than others, which we typically do. Pat on the back. I mean, that's just part of what we do here. But going over it more and more, it does look like other people are falling prey to it. Okay, Republicans just don't want to talk. Those who do are definitely, I would say, more moderate. We're also polling Pennsylvania. That's done. We're starting to crunch. We're trying to get you Trump v. Biden in Pennsylvania by tonight. And then by Thursday and Friday, we'll get you the rest of it. Fetterman, Oz, Mastriano, Shapiro. I will tell you this, though. Jim Lee from Susquehanna, he published at least the Senate right now. And what he found, very similar, I would say, ballpark. I don't know. It's not. Don't quote me on it. But I think now that I'm looking at it, I'm more bullish on Oz's chances because all it takes is for Oz to consolidate his base. That's it. It looks like Republicans are either going to vote at parity with Democrats, or Pennsylvania could be like R+1. Or maybe even R+2. It depends. It's just that Democrats are a little bit more enthusiastic now than they were before. It's just being, being controlled by this enthusiasm deficit that Democratic voting groups have. If you're younger, you are not at all interested or enthusiastic about voting this year. And also, you are less likely to say you're certain to vote. If you are older, you are more enthusiastic, and it's, literally goes, it increases as you move up through the age groups, and we can show you that for sure. It just doesn't show up so much in party because what it's impacting is, right-leaning people, right-leaning independents versus left-leaning independents. If you're a man, you're significantly more enthusiastic to vote than females. This is becoming a trend now here, folks, all right? That said, maybe because Pennsylvania is one of those states where there is a MAGA presence, you do have Trump going to campaign for both Oz and Mastriano. Maybe he does get those folks out there, because what we saw in 2018, if he didn't go to a place like Minnesota, they were missing about 300,000, working class votes. If he did go to a place like Indiana, right, then we saw those votes come in. So. Or Florida, for instance. That's really even a better example. So where Trump isn't on the ballot or he's not making a presence, Republicans, I said, are having a hard time getting voters to the polls in the numbers that they could otherwise do. And that's certainly true. That's certainly based on what I've seen in both the national survey and in Pennsylvania. All right. But let's just take a look at again, this will change. So just bear with me, okay? Let's take a look at, and this I'm doing this right now, literally. So I know it's hard to see, but let's go to most important issues. By the way, I don't have it in there yet. Biden's approval on inflation is in the 20s. It's like 28%. It's pretty funny. And then the Trump v. Biden with leaners. Let me just show you how much stronger Trump is running against Biden and other candidates for that matter than Republicans are running against Democrats in the generic ballot. You can see before all total weights are put in, it's actually pretty close. I would be shocked if the rest of the weighting doesn't get I would be shocked if Republicans took any more than a 3-point lead when we're done. All right, I'm just being honest with you. And that's because of this giant undecided. All right, and we'll show you why. All right, but here Trump immediately has about a 4-point lead with leaners. Where are the leaners? Where are my leaners here? Most important issues went in front of it. Hold on. With leaners, and here, let me just make sure the calculations are correct. All right, what we want to show is, wrong one, sorry. Trump v. Biden. Oh, those are leaners. No, I want it with leaners. Trump, I'll put it at the end just to make it easier. Trump, just so ignore the first one. I'll move it around in a second. All right, but this is what we don't need total mentions there. Valid cases we need, sample sizes we need. Percentage of total mention. Yep, that's it. And just to we'll get rid of the undecided so you don't have to worry about seeing that and it confusing you, because what this is doing is called a multiple response variable. So what I'm simply doing is telling them if they pick Trump in the first question, okay, and then they leaned to Trump in the second one, please combine them and then give me a total number. You can do that with Trump, Biden, third party, but you can't do it with undecided. You understand what I'm saying? Otherwise, undecideds are going to be double. All right. So that's not what you want it to do. Or not double. It's going to be more, because if they were undecided before and then you asked them to lean and they stayed undecided, using a multiple response variable will simply add those who said, I'm still undecided, to the original undecided, which would give them an overinflated number. It only works with candidates when they leaned. If they were undecided first and then lean. That's why I always give people that format, all right? So you saw that in the generic ballot, right? Now, before we even get to the, the rest of the weighting, and we do combinations. It depends what kind of sample it is. Matching isn't really applicable in our modes. It can be with some people who use opt-in online surveys, but even our online component is not opt-in. It's not. We don't do it like that. All right. Some people do, and that's fine. But then you have to design the survey and weight the survey differently because it's not a randomized. There's no randomization at all. With us, I argue randomization's out the window regardless, but it's not like an online panel that's supposed to be reflective of it's not how it works. So you have to do a little bit more. You can do matching, or you can do some combination of other weights. But anyway, you can clearly see here when they lean, all right, Donald Trump increases about another 2 points, and Joe Biden increases only 1 point. So overall, Donald Trump takes a 5-point lead over Joe Biden. With the lines, again, though, too, there's a big third-party vote. When you look at that, it is hurting Joe Biden more than it is hurting Donald Trump. The problem for Joe Biden is, even if those people either weren't there, and they will be, but even if they weren't, okay, and he started getting the lion's share of those votes, the undecideds are still more prone to vote, or if he can get them, they're more prone to vote to lean to Trump anyway, because that's demographically what they look like. So Trump would get closer to like 47, 48. And even if Biden got the lion's share of these, he'd end up around 44, 45, right? It's just hard to catch Trump at this point when you're looking at it. But I will say this before the final number comes out, Gavin Newsom is not competitive, all right? I just hate to blow everybody's bubble right now. He simply is not competitive. All right, let's look at it by area. Look at Trump v. Biden by area, and you'll get the general idea. Urban areas, Trump's in the low 30s. Biden's suffering there. Those are who he would be able to bump up with for sure. He would certainly do better with the suburban vote, but it wouldn't matter. Trump would take it. He'd end up around 52, 53. And then, of course, we all know where this vote is going, and Joe Biden's barely going anywhere. He'd be lucky, frankly. It's a 2.1 sampling error. He'd be lucky if he even got anywhere near 32%. So the lion's share of that would go to Trump, and he would be in the 60s, right? Overall, what concerns me, or not even concerns, what I'm looking at is this built-in structural advantage that Trump has in suburban America. So Trump much is 7-point lead in the suburbs, and that's not even totally. I think this, like I said, there's a couple of things going. The Northeast is a little too much in the polling still. I got to just do that, and I hope to get it out today. It should be out today, but no, I just wanted to show you this for your benefit, just so you can see what I'm looking at. I didn't put all the demographics in there yet, but I can. Basically, party detail. Let's look at that. All right. And I know it's hard for you guys to see, right? You guys are having a hard time seeing. I can scoot in a little bit. Hold on. Let me zoom in a little bit. If I zoom in too much, I'm going to lose my controllers. All right. How's that? A little bit better? A little bit better, right? I know it's tough, but Trump's losing about 7% of the Republican vote. Joe Biden's losing about 10% of the Democratic vote. And then Trump has about let's call it a 9-point lead among voters who call themselves independent. Those who are in something else, those third-party voters, very small sample this time. Less people were calling themselves third-party this time around. Basically Trump is, they're tied. This is a group with 28% still being undecided. This is a group that, again, the common media narrative is that Joe Biden, this group in 16 hurt Hillary Clinton, because these voters would have otherwise been for Hillary Clinton, even though it was like what's his name? Johnson, right? Gary Johnson. And that was the Libertarian candidate. And then you had Jill Stein, who was the Green. And Greens normally take from Democrats. Libertarians normally take from Republicans. But in the case of 16, I argued that would be foolish to just assume, without Ron Johnson, Trump would have won New Hampshire, Minnesota, maybe even New Mexico. And no, that's not true. Colorado, those could have been younger voters who aren't going to vote for Donald Trump, but didn't like Hillary Clinton and would not have voted for Hillary Clinton. So I think there is a case to be made that Ron Johnson hurt Hillary Clinton. Not enough to swing the election, but definitely hurt her. All right. So in 2020, these very same voters were allegedly voting mostly now two-party, and that those voters were going pretty considerably 2-1 to Joe Biden. All right. That's what we have been told. So, and when we first started the public polling project, you might remember that this group was pretty good on Joe Biden. They were pretty decent on him, right? Well, now they're not. So, I mean, it's the movement I'm looking at. And in fact, if you look at Biden's approval, which will probably end up at 38, 39, I'm not seeing a tick back here. You guys know you've been around long enough to know how bad raw looks for Democrats, because response biases tend to make raw look more favorable to Democratic votes. You know by now that this is not an impressive result. So only got 40.1. Maybe it holds around 40%. But this is not a bounce back by any stretch of the imagination. 46.1%, 56.1% disapprove of the job Joe Biden is doing, and only 3.8% are undecided. The sampling error is 2.1. If he was 38%, hovering between 38, 39%, even if he came in at 40, 41, it's not a significant increase. You know it when you see it. And again, this is how you know area-wise there's some work that needs to be done here, right? Because strongly approved 3.2 with Republicans about 6.5, right? So combined, you're looking at like 9.7%, almost 10%. You know that's really not going to happen. Democratic disapproval is ugly. 18.8%. That's bad. Independents are at 30, 31, And then this something else, this third party category that we've been talking about, 27.4%. A group that supposedly threw the election to Joe Biden. And I will be honest, during the Epoch Times, national polling, we absolutely did see that third party something else group go to Biden. It did. How much is debatable? But Joe Biden definitely won those who called themselves third party, but were not voting third party. All right. Interesting. Let's go to most important issues. And again, what I am telling you is that there really was a response bias. We really did see a response bias that favored Democrats. It was difficult not only to reach Republicans, but then get them to complete the surveys. It was very difficult when you look at rural versus suburban versus urban. It just was easy to get a Metro Republican, and then they're dying to give you, their latest take. And it did seem like the working class were just about done, because it is more than just region. You can see when you look at education and income, for instance, there are red flags everywhere. When you look at white ethnicity, there are red flags everywhere. People without college degrees, they were like, even the some college associate, which is it's a very good group for Donald Trump. It is not so much a good group for Republicans. Trump from, Pennsylvania to Florida to Georgia to wherever. Trump is running anywhere between like 3 and 8 points ahead of Republicans, generic Republicans, or even their Senate candidates. In Pennsylvania, it probably is going to be even worse. Like, how could it be worse? Don't hold me to this, but like, don't be surprised if I drop a Trump plus 6 or 8 in Pennsylvania and it's like a Fetterman plus 3. Like, that kind of spread is real. All right. Abortion is 3.5%. I mean, about 9.5%, but you can see where it's coming from. It's coming from those Democrats. Look at where like climate change now among Democrats has fallen to only 10. Election integrity and reforms is only 4 now. Even the economy and jobs and cost of living among Democrats took a hit. But foreign policy, national security, they were once at what? 15% during Ukraine. They're now down to 1.4. Guns, 13%. After they were so keen about what happened with the guns, they're now down to 5.4. Healthcare overall has slid to 6.6. That was generally number 3, right? 3 or 4. It is not going to be now. These are educated voters, Democrats, and we can go by education. I'll throw it in there. That's who is shifting this attention to abortion. Again, these are people who would have voted anyway. It's just different on what they're going to vote for now, what they're voting on now. Overwhelmingly, cost of living and inflation still at 30%, generally where it was before. Economy and jobs came down a hair. But together, they're almost half the electorate, the concerns of the electorate. Abortion may have risen, but so did immigration. And they're almost identical. 8.7 versus 9.5. I'm unimpressed. I just, this concept, they're telling you it's the Dobbs decision because they don't want you to talk about what it really is, which is a failure of leadership, a lot of bad decisions when it came to spending, and just having no freaking spine. You have to, all leaders have to inspire in order to get people to follow them. They're just not inspirational at all. Kevin McCarthy is, listen, at least when he sees people go nuts, he reacts. Mitch McConnell is just killing himself and his caucus. Don't get me wrong. No. Don't get me wrong. I'm not jumping on the McCarthy train. Don't get me wrong. Never. At best, moderate Republican from the state of California should not be the leader of the House of Representatives for the Republican Party. That is not a modern Republican voter, or he is not representative of the modern Republican coalition at all. So don't get me wrong. I'm just simply saying, at least he says, you know what? We're going to have Merrick Garland's, you know what, for this. When Mitch McConnell was literally trying to convince Trump to appoint Merrick Garland. So you can see there really are two different totals of the extreme. What are you looking at? What are you looking for? And I didn't realize I have the bag up for Patriots Rail. I just wanted to pull it up when I was ready. But what's up?
Just saying, like, before you go there.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Who, Steve? Tell him all right. I guess, right? 10
minutes is nothing.
I have a trip tomorrow, and Laura is like packing today. I have to run to. It's important. I have to run to DC and back in the span of a day tomorrow. It's going to be a little bit hectic, but Laura's trying to get me to do everything before I go.
Laura is doing her job.
Laura's doing her job, right? But it's a little tough because I want to get my job. I want to get my polling crunched here. But you can see here that generally independents seem to be in the middle of Republicans and Democrats here on these issues, whereas once upon a time they did favor Republicans more than this. COVID is not a concern at all. It has now fallen to 2.1%. Independents don't give a damn about it. Neither do Republicans. Some Democrats do, but that's over now, guys. That's over now. It's about abortion. It's a flavor of the month now. All right. So I just want you to put all of this stuff in its proper context. And generally, even though I said they're mostly in the middle, the truth is the true independents, they really are more just slightly toward Republicans and then not. And we always do our affiliation. What are you? Are you, hold on, let's do it. I'll take a look at it right now. Unaffiliated leanings, right? So if they consider themselves something else or an independent, we say, well, which one are you more? Which one? Hold on, I'll read it to you point blank. All right. If you think of yourself as an independent or something else, right? Yes. If you think of yourself as an independent or something else, are your views aligned more closely to the Republican Party, the Democratic Party, equally close to the Republican Party and Democratic Party, or share little in common with either? You can see that they lean to the Republican Party. Almost many, say they're about equally aligned, but there's still an edge, clearly, plurality edge for Republicans. So that is not always the case. They move, they tend to move quite a bit from cycle to cycle. And last year, or 2020, for instance, you would have seen slightly more to the Republican Party. The Democratic Party. In 21, we saw that they were more to the Republican Party like they are now. So looks like right track, wrong track got a little better. I'm still not, we can take a look at it. I'm still not, it's still bad, right? 24.8% right, 64.6% wrong. That will widen a little bit just because of when we're done with propensity, being done before raking. I did this quickly just to give you an idea. And what do I mean by that? I did some real light weighting, just like, okay, are men all right? How about, race? Does race look okay? Like African Americans were a little bit too much. They were about, 15%. They're not going to be 15%. So that's why you, again, oversample. So when you weight down, it doesn't cause you to have this ridiculous 40-point swing in weighting efficiency. You do not want that. You want it to remain high, your percentage for your weighting efficiency. All right. What else? Because I do. Oh, it's 12:30. All right. We'll go over this a little bit more before we bring on our guests. But before we do, like I've said a million times, let me stop the screen share. Let me share. There is, and I want you to keep in mind when we go over this next segment, why it is that there could possibly be a Republican bias or any bias, social bias, response bias, right? In today's modern era. Now, you're dealing with two things, all right, right now. One is a typical end of summer, back to school, Republican response bias. Understand, it is not unfair for me to say Republicans work more than Democrats. It's true. Republicans are kids, all right? They tend to say, I have more children. That it's true. Right? Sorry. All right. So there are just periods and times, there are religious observations because Republicans are more religious. It's just more difficult to reach them. All right. So keep that in mind. All right. But I'm not saying it to put anybody down. All right. I'm saying it because it's true. And keep it in mind when we talk about our next segment. But before we do, let's do the roll tape here. All right. Look, and we're going to go over food shortages in the polling when we talk about cost of living detail, but could be coming even in the U.S. If you think it can't, think again. Experts said as recently as July. Drought, inflation, and even new policies are pushing America's food supply near its breaking point. That's why survival food is more important than ever. Create your own stockpile, like Laura and I, of the best-selling 4 Patriot survival food kits. It's not ordinary food. We're talking good for 25 years, super survival food. Hand-packed right in a family-owned facility in the US of A. The kits are compact, they're sturdy, they're water resistant, and they stack very easily. And one day I'm going to have them show you when I'm doing this. They have different, it's right over there. It's just I keep forgetting to bring it over. They have different delicious breakfasts, lunches, and dinners. You can make these meals in less than 20 minutes. Just add boiling water, simmer, and serve. And by the way, if you don't have boiling water, you may get one on this same site. Go to 4patriots.com/TPP to get your 3-month survival kit for only $6.97. You'll get their famous guarantee for an entire year after you order, plus 10 free gifts and shipping. by the way. One of them could be that. All right. They're called 4 Patriots because a portion of every sale is donated to charities who support our veterans and their families. Just go to this page right here, 4patriots.com/TVP. Links in the description to build your own stockpile today. All right. And here I have this up, but one day I'm going to bring that thing. All right. When they say free gifts, every single one of them is useful. All right. And they're delicious. All right. Listen, I got to bring on somebody to talk about, we had the Mar-a-Lago raid, to talk about why it is that some people may feel concerned in this country. If you think that the president could be a target of an investigation using some flimsy, ridiculous interpretation of some law that's barely used anymore, then, if you think that can happen to him, but not you, then you are sadly mistaken. All right. So it looks like, Joeylynn, I'm going to bring you in here if you're ready to go. All right. I want to thank you for joining the show today. All right. How you doing?
I'm awesome. Thank you so much for having us. It was so great to meet Laura at CPAC, and I'm so grateful for a chance to tell our story on your platform.
I really didn't think of anything more relevant at this point. I really couldn't. And as I'm a pollster, we've asked about this before. Do you think the Justice Department is abused? Do you think various agencies are abused for political ends? And also, how much do Americans hate it? And they do. I just don't think that the media presents what happens to people like you in the correct light. I was reading, and I'll put it up. I was reading the Epoch Times article. Why don't you tell people a little bit about what happened first, and then we'll get into it.
Thank you so much. So for your viewers, I'm a stay-at-home mom in Texas. My husband and I are getting sued in federal court under the Ku Klux Klan law of 1851 for flying Trump flags next to the Biden bus when it drove through our town during 2020. They might remember that viral video. It made headlines for a couple of weeks. Trump tweeted about it. Biden used it for campaigning. And, at the time for us, it was just a fun and exciting opportunity to show our support for President Trump. We just drove next to the bus. That was it. And now we are facing hundreds of thousands of dollars in legal defense fees as we find ourselves in civil court. So there have been no crimes, no charges. These are
Right.
offended Biden-Harris campaign staffers, White House officials, and Democrat politicians that are suing us for financial compensation, claiming that they have PTSD from our presence next to them on the road that day.
PTSD. Folks, they are equivocating what their experience with the experience of the lone survivor. I mean, this is it's almost insulting, but it is what we know it is, which it's a fear tactic. They're trying to scare you into submission. They're trying to scare you to not you. They're just you. It's everyone. When we talk about these response biases, right? Republicans, they're like, they don't know who I am when I call, right? Or when I text them. They put me in with the media who they know slanders people like you and others that they agree with, right? And they don't want to talk. So it's like little wonder why that's the case. And for the longest time, I remember pollsters in my industry were blaming Donald Trump for Republican response biases, which it's crazy. I mean, you look in the mirror. That's who you have to blame. But my question to you is, you and your husband both, I mean, it's a terrible ordeal to have to go through because you flew flags. Is it working? Is it working, Joeylynn? Is it?
So
is there
American
scare tactic working on you?
The scare tactic is not working. I would say that for the first couple of weeks, it was pretty effective. And that would be because we learned about this lawsuit from CNN. It was released to mainstream media through a press release that they were suing us under the Ku Klux Klan law, but there were no additional details, and we had not been served to actually understand the scope of this lawsuit. It took 4 weeks after the national press release for us to get this paperwork and to be served and to understand what we were even getting sued for. And that was when I learned the difference between a criminal and a civil matter. I didn't even know that at the time. And so, we've learned so much since then. And I'd say during that first 4 weeks, we were very intimidated. We were scared that we'd be thrown into jail like the people we saw from January 6th, because we didn't understand what they were making up about us. And we were hearing words like white supremacist, domestic terrorist, Ku Klux Klan in the media headlines. There were also headlines headline saying we ran the bus off the road, which simply never happened. And as a
I was going to ask you about that. Yeah.
Yes,
But we will. We'll get in it.
Hate mail, death threats, rape wishes. People have reported us to CPS trying to get our child removed from the home. It has been an extreme burden on our family, but we are a family of faith. And so after that initial shock wore off, we really felt that God called us to this. They think that they have picked on us, but we believe we've been called to stand in the gap and defend free speech rights, not just for our family, but for all Americans. And so we're willing to be on the front lines. We just need the materials and resources to fight the fight, which the left doesn't expect us to have. They use lawfare to bankrupt you and make an example out of you, like you were mentioning. And we have already spent over $80,000 trying to get this dismissed. We cashed out our 401k. They haven't met the basic requirements of using this Ku Klux Klan law against us. But the Obama-appointed judge that we're assigned to ruled that we'd go to trial in federal court anyways. And now we're looking at between $400,000 and $600,000 worth of legal defense fees to prove that we weren't doing what they said and to defend our constitutional right to free speech and supporting the political opponent of our choice.
Just so everybody understands, the irony of this is that what does this law do? They're claiming this was voter suppression. That's the irony. You know, Laura has been saying for many, many years, a lot of people say it now, but my wife had said it for many years, like talked about this projection thing they do. You know, they accuse you of colluding with Russians. Yes. They colluded with somebody. You know, they accuse you of this. Believe me, they're doing it somewhere. That kind of thing. That is essentially what they're doing to you is voter suppression. It's bullying. Yet that's what they're accusing you of doing. Yes. And I wanted to ask you, the FBI, that FBI, they did investigate this and they found, and just so people know, here's the, I'll put the article in so people can read it if they want. But it says the FBI investigated the incident, which resulted in a collision, right? After a Biden supporter's white vehicle appeared to cross into the lane of a truck driven by a Trump supporter. Yep. No charges were filed. Yet they claimed you ran the bus off the road. Tell people what really happened.
That wasn't even our truck. We were never even involved in a car accident. I never even saw that accident happen that day. They are saying that as a member of the group, we assume responsibility for everybody's actions because we were out there together. And they captured a Facebook post where we said we were there that day and included it in their 62-page civil complaint where they claim that we, quote, banded together on a public highway, like the Ku Klux Klan, to suppress Black and minority voter rights. That was our intent for being on the road that day. They go on to claim that we had a premeditated plan of assault to run the bus off the road. And that came as a complete fabrication from the media headlines exaggerating the story about the white Biden staffer who was driving completely sporadically. I did see that and actually have video and photos on my own phone of that because we did witness that for probably 10 miles or more on the highway, that at some point that car was swerving in and out of traffic, exited its lane, slammed into a Trump truck that kind of pushed it back, and they both kept driving down the road. But mainstream media only showed the second half of that video over and over and over and indicated that the black truck and other vehicles were ramming cars off the road like pinball, and we were trying to run the bus off the road. They are completely purging this information in court. They know that they're lying, yet the burden is on us to defend ourselves and to prove that that's not what happened. But where's the outrage from the left? You know, the outrage is saying that we tried to run the bus off the road. We're suppressing Black people from voting. The left actually is suppressing conservative voter rights. They actually are trying to run vehicles off the road. But there's no outrage for that because people believe what they're told when they consume that mainstream media, and they don't do the research themselves. And our voices have been greatly silenced. Conservative media hasn't really covered the story. Our elected officials really aren't speaking out about this. And so we're very grateful for platforms like yours that give us a voice to share our side of the story and allow people to do research themselves and to put the pieces together and say, this doesn't make any sense at all. And if it could happen to a stay-at-home mom and it's happening to Trump,
right,
where do I fall in that? Where am I when I exercise free speech? And could this law system be weaponized against me? And so that's where we feel it's very important to defend our constitutional rights here because they're trying to make this a thing. And they will use this case law as precedent setting moving forward to try to weaponize this law against other Americans moving forward.
Oh, without a doubt. And it's a 150-year-old law, which probably had some kind, relevance at the time. We've looked at this before, without a doubt. There's been, some dark history in this country. Nobody's denying that. But this law was used to sue Donald Trump as well. I mean, they haven't. It's a very stale piece of legislation. It was used after January 6th to sue Donald Trump. Yes. And just so everybody knows who this so-called civil rights group is, they represent Wendy Davis. Remember her? She ran against Greg Abbott. Yes. Also, by the way, Mrs. Unfettered Abortion. She got crushed, right? And this is something I was in Dallas, Fort Worth a couple of weeks ago. And so were you. And there was this abortion activism, whatever, don't take my rights away from me thing. They were escorted with armed bands of they were all carrying AR-15s, which, by the way, sure, I have weapons. I'm not holding that against anybody else. I'm simply saying it really is almost a reverse psychology thing, yes. Right? They don't want you to suppress their vote, yet they weaponize the Justice Department, and whether it's criminal, civil, whatever, to go after you and others. They don't support the Second Amendment, yet all over the country, whether it's abortion or LGBT rights, there was last week, was also escorted by armed guards. So who's intimidating? Who's trying to intimidate who here? I mean, this is, really, you are a single, a single family household, it says, right? And they go after you on this. If they can, this is, I guess, the biggest worry all through the Trump years I always had. It's different if they're able to, or and some like him did with they did him, just like they're doing you. If they're willing to do it to somebody like him who can defend himself, have the resources to do so, at least for now, then they'll do it to anybody. And you're really living proof that they will. You have support structure, family and friends that are, there for you. Said, you're a family of faith. I mean, that's got to help in the situation. For people who don't know what it's like to have something like this, whether it's the federal government or left-wing interest groups come down on you with their infinite resources, it's hard. So, I'm just curious to see, how you've been dealing with it. Friends, family, stuff like that.
Initially, the church that we were going to at the time that we were served paperwork did not want to get involved. They said they didn't pick sides politically. They wouldn't be discussing it publicly. And they asked us to keep it to ourselves and to move on. And so we started looking for a new church home, a home that understands that the Constitution is so heavily worded in, biblical values and those principles and those freedoms that Christ offers. And, we finally found one, thank God. We have a new church home now that has done amazing work to help us fundraise and share our story, where we've made new friends. But we lost so many friends at the time, and family members wrote us off because they said, we didn't realize you were Ku Klux Klan. We didn't know you were white supremacists. And it's like, you have known us your whole lives. Regardless of where you fall on the political scale, you ought to know our character versus what you're consuming from the media. And, it really drew a hard line in the sand where we lost quite a few relationships. But, it took time. But God has provided us new friendships, very meaningful friendships, very authentic and genuine, wholehearted support. We have a fantastic support system that continues building out. And we're so grateful for the biggest trial in our life, literally and metaphorically, has been one of the greatest blessings. And the left never could have anticipated that, but that's how God works. And so we move forward in faith. There is definitely a black cloud that follows us around, and choosing joy is a conscious decision every day. But we are just seeing the importance of standing up right now. Linking arms in your local community, waiting on one person to fix all the problems is never going to happen.
Amen.
So it's on us, and we have been made for such a time as this. We use what is in our hand. We don't have to be made perfect. We're just being perfected along the way. We just have to be willing. And so it's been an interesting journey that is continuing to shape our faith. And that is something the left cannot take away from us.
And by the way, good for you. You have to get up in the morning, and this is something that's always been a big part of my family's culture, whatever you want to call it. You have to get up in the morning and choose positivity. You have to. It's a choice. It's a state of mind. Wherever you draw that strength from. Of course, I think it sounds like you draw from the same place I do, and we do. But it still doesn't mean it isn't tough, so I applaud you for doing it. There were experts when I was researching about this, basically everyone thought this case would be dismissed. I mean, even academic people,
Yes.
who are not right wing, were like,
Yes.
this is a bit ludicrous.
Yes.
But it did not. So you have to feel, I mean, you got to be positive and confident that ultimately you're going to prevail here, right?
We thought that's where our victory would be. We really did. We thought we were going to put up the money, put up the fight, and get that good news that it got dismissed. And when we got that news that it didn't get dismissed, we were like, wow, that is not what we expected. Like you said, based on our legal counsel, based on the experts, based on people who just weighed in on it, that it was so completely ridiculous. It wouldn't go anywhere. And so it didn't shake our faith, which surprised me, because I think before or in years past, that would be something that really would. Like, God, where are you? Why aren't you moving? It was very clear in that moment. God wanted to take this all the way, that he was going to get all the glory. It was going to be a big show, that justice and truth would prevail, and we'd get a bigger win for First Amendment rights than maybe we already have the victory. We're just going to walk in it, and it's probably going to have a lot of ups and downs and some hard days, but we're just going to be faithful. And we're trying to appeal this to the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals, which is much more conservative than the Western District
Very smart.
that we're in. And then after that, it's the Supreme Court, which statistically won't hear a case that's been appealed from the Fifth Circuit. They hear, like, I think less than 3%. So realistically, if we can get a win in the Fifth Circuit, I think that we'll be victorious. And this judge we're assigned to, he struck down Texas's heartbeat bill after it was put into place. And then the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals stepped in and struck that decision down, and it appealed to the Supreme Court. And so if we follow that same trajectory through the court system, I believe we'll have their favor. This judge, though, has definitely shown his bias.
It's a higher, of course, higher risk, but ultimately higher reward that it didn't get dismissed,
Right.
because then it gets aired out and it has its day, and then ultimately people who brought these charges against you. I'm not a lawyer, but some of these accusations were just so outrageous. I can't imagine there's not going to be some kind of punishment for that. I don't know what that looks like, but whether it's monetary or who knows. But
Right.
I just I think that was reading that you guys do your own discovery and everything, right? So, or how many? If you had a ballpark it, because they want all these documents, how long does it take you to put this stuff together?
Oh,
I
my
want
God.
people to understand the time that would take from your life
Yeah.
if
It's
somebody
abusive.
targeted you like this.
Mhm. It's abusive. It is
It's
intentional,
abusive, yeah.
and it's abusive. We spend probably 40 hours a week capturing and turning over data that we then pay our attorney to spend hours sifting through to find relevant to send over to them. In addition to that, I probably spend 40 to 60 hours fundraising, trying to tell our story, doing pop-up tents where I'm set up trying to sell fundraising merchandise,
Yeah.
or tell people about what's going on in our community, attending local events, reaching out to Congress people, news stations. It's taking quite a toll. And for my husband, there are some things I just can't do or don't know how to do. And he will work a full day and come home and stay up till 3 a.m. working on that stuff, and then get up and go right back to work at 6 or 7 a.m. And we're not a corporation that has a team that can deal with this Monday through Friday, 8 to 5. We're just a little family that's trying to learn this as we go, figure this out, do our best. We get it together, send it to them. They say, that's not what we want. That's not good enough. Do it all over again. It's feels like getting beat up like a little. They've got their piñata sticks and we're just taking the hits. And I imagine they're on a beach sipping Mai Tais. That's kind of how it feels.
Yeah, because, but you're probably not that far off. I hate to tell you, because this is what they do by design. This is how it's done. They do have the resources. They do have the teams. They have interns are typing up those letters saying, yeah, not good enough, and that intern's doing it. So we can have a nice little liberal resume that'll play well when they're done. It's a terrible system. It really is. And
They have
my heart goes out to you guys on it. It's a full-time job. It's more than a full-time job.
Oh, it is.
Dealing with
It's
something like this.
changed our lives completely changed our lives from learning about it on the news to where we're at now. It's so completely different. And they've got over 20 attorneys. They have multiple nonprofits funding this lawsuit. They have created a campaign to fight voter intimidation, like you mentioned earlier. I'm certain that they have unlimited resources. They've got endless funding. They've got endless interns. They've got, fundraising sources coming from multiple outlets. They have created us in the public light as the Ku Klux Klan on these platforms with caricatures where we're wearing white hoods holding Confederate flags and strapped with guns next to the Biden bus. And so the defamation here and the abuse, I agree with you. There needs to be accountability. And so we hope to raise enough money, not just to defend ourselves, but to win, to recuperate our legal expenses, and then to either countersue or sue for defamation. There has to be something put into place here where this is not trend. And we have reached out to over 50 or more First Amendment right organizations, and they've all denied our application, saying they specialize in religious freedoms and not political free speech. And we have not found a resource to help us fund this fight. We feel like we're this Bermuda Triangle of no existing resources for us, and we're just crashing, burning, and sinking. And we've created a website called freespeechdefender.com, where currently we're fundraising to fight this fight for our family and the American family. But we hope that it'll turn and morph into an organization that continues to do so for other Americans that come under attack in the same way. Since those resources clearly don't exist, there's a need for that. And we hope that once we get a victory here, we can begin fulfilling that for others moving forward.
So I was going to ask you about that. Did check out the website, and I was going to ask you about that. You have, and I can name a few. You have places like the Thomas More Society, right? You have all these, I don't know that I call them right wing. They're just like religious freedom. They got involved with David Daleiden, for instance, right? But there doesn't seem to be a place. I think some of it is just what sells. And look at on the left side of this. The SPLC, a garbage organization. The ACLU, a once proud but now trash organization. That pays for them, though. They start a little civil rights group like this and raise, and the liberals are opening their checkbooks, right?
Yes.
It's amazing. But for the right, it's almost like religious freedom, yes, I guess in some respects. The Second Amendment, yes, but there's more to the First Amendment than religious freedom, and the right is like wholly unprepared to deal with some of these assaults. Am I wrong?
You're right. And the left knows it, which is even worse. They know it. That they have strategically marooned us with not only this law they filed it under, just basically, I feel like we've been labeled before we ever even make it to somebody's desk or phone call inbox. They take one look at that and don't want to touch it. They've already drawn their conclusion. It's hard to come back from that. They know that. And this law has other names. That's the one they choose to use because it creates the most outrage in their community, and it slanders and defames us. Whoopi Goldberg and the cast of The View said that we were emboldened racist bigots crawling out from under our rocks. And first it would be flying Trump flags next to the Biden bus, but later it would be burning crosses in people's front yards. How do you salvage your reputation when people are painting this picture about you to the public, and you don't have a voice because your conservative community, your conservative media, your elected politicians don't want to touch it? There is one side of the narrative and not the other. It is an extremely frustrating position to be in, and we are just doing our best to be as squeaky of a wheel as possible so that we can try to fight against this giant machine that is so tyrannical against the American people.
I got to tell you too, though. I also I applaud you for being so outspoken, because I think a lot of people would have gone dark, and just tried to deal the best they could, or to cope the best they could. It's just definitely is a fear out there. There is, suing, prosecutions, whatever it may be, and most people too wouldn't. I get what you're saying with family. It's like amazing. You can know maybe a cousin or something since you were both in diapers, and then the media says something, and it's suddenly as if they forgot that they've known you their entire lives. So even family, it's tough. But my best goes out to your husband. Really, why don't you tell everybody where they can go? We've been showing it, but tell everybody where they could go if they want to get involved and help you out.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Our website
You're
is
very
free.
welcome.
Our website is freespeechdefender.com. From the website, you're able to follow our story. There's a quick video you can share with friends and family to let them know what's going on. If it's hard to remember the exact details, we have made that simple. On the legal updates tab, you can follow along as we progress through the judicial system. There's a media tab where we link the interviews that we've been on. We have a shop tab where we sell funny free speech merchandise where you can exercise free speech while supporting us. And then there's a contact tab where you can reach out to us. From the main page, there are multiple platforms where you can launch off to our fundraiser through Give, Send, Go. At the top, you see a banner that says, "Let's defend free speech together." Click here. We've tried to make it as easy as possible with mailing addresses, PayPal links. We accept all methods of payment. But we are so grateful for people sharing our story, praying over our family, continuing to exercise free speech, and following our story. We're very, very grateful that y'all gave us a voice on your platform, and I'm so excited to share it with our followers.
Joeylynn, keep us posted. I'm sorry this happened to you. I really am, and our heart goes out to you. Prayers are with you, and let us know how it's going.
Thank you. God bless you for the work that you do. Thank you for working to make America great again.
You too. You too. But thank you. All right. All the best to you.
Thank you. God bless.
God bless. All right, folks, go check that out. I mean, look, we're just talking about polling. This is. Well, I can't believe Donald Trump made people hate pollsters, so they don't want to talk to us anymore. No, aggression made people not want to speak anymore. I think what we're dealing with too, summer's typical summer bias, but this is like it could happen. It could happen to anybody. Yet, by the way, you're supposed to just kind of sit there and twiddle your thumbs while like a mini militia parades down the street to escort a left-wing activist protesting something. I mean, it's just crazy. It's crazy. But go check it out. Learn more about it. I think you'd be outraged to find it out. And again, the FBI comes and looks at it, but they never give you back your reputation. There's no way to go. Like, there's nowhere to go back to get your reputation. Even though the FBI takes a look into Justice Kavanaugh and there's nothing there, he's always forever going to be maligned by these accusations, right? Joeylynn and her husband, right? The FBI looked into it. If they had done something criminal, they would have jumped on the chance. Look at what they're doing under Merrick Garland. They would have jumped on the chance to prosecute that family. This isn't. It's not American. It's not American. We fight. I don't know. Yeah, I'm looking at some. I grew up in this era too, where all of a sudden nobody did things like this. Sued. We'd be nuts. And then I don't know. It's like the McDonald's coffee mentality. You guys remember that? One lady doesn't know coffee's hot. Sues McDonald's for millions. Gets the label on it that says, warning, coffee hot. And they just opened the door. And by the way, Democrats make money off of these so-called civil rights groups that sue people. They also these lawyers love frivolous lawsuits and the ability to bring frivolous lawsuits. One of the things that Governor Perry had done in Texas, or at least tried, he got some of it, was tort reform because of this kind of crap. And unfortunately, these groups are powerful. They're extremely powerful. All right, it's 1:00. I'm going to take my quick break. When we come back, we will absolutely get back into more of the polling, but I would urge you to go check out the website. Laura will throw it all in the comment sections as well. All right, we'll be back in 2 minutes and 46 seconds. Don't go anywhere. You're watching Inside the Numbers.
How much you wanna bet that I can get you back inside your head before the summer ends and spread a little love. Just for a little fun, I'll make you come back to me before the rise of every sun. Baby, it's meant to be. I know you got a man, but he don't understand. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. There's rhythm in our love, it's impressive, excessive. You can't make this stuff up. My chest beats, it's restless, wakes the neighbors up above. Yeah, baby, come and show me love. Baby, come and show me love. Because you're gonna heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah.
We can get on a plane and take a one-way ride. Steal us away to find a place we can hide. It wouldn't take much to disappear for a night. Just to give in to the need and leave it all behind.
'Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. 'Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. Suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah.
All right, we're back. Welcome to Inside the Numbers. If you just joined us with the People's Pundit, I'm your host, Rich Barris, People's Pundit. All right, follow me on Truth and Getter at People's_Pundit, on Twitter at People's_Pundit, and you can follow along on Rumble, YouTube, of course, right? If you're on YouTube, don't forget to hit that notification bell. That'll let you know when we're going to go live. But on Rumble and anywhere, frankly, but if you're on Rumble, it's real easy. Best place to follow us is right there, peoplespundit.locals.com. By the way, if you guys missed it, locals, I did put up the voter analysis. It was more than that, though. Bear with me. For Union County, I tried to do it under that new articles thing. Locals people know what I'm talking about. But instead, I put it in as a PDF until I figure out something. All right. Otherwise, you would have gotten my commentary along with each individual one. You might have noticed that it wasn't just a voter analysis for Union County, considering that person was thinking about moving to Union County, North Carolina. I also superimposed it on the consumer file database. All right. And we spit out things like renters versus homeowners, different values. All right. Interesting factoid about Union County, which I figured out while I was in there, is that even though the there's two trends in North Carolina as far as voter registration. One is Democrats are bleeding their edge on basically what we had seen happen in Florida. Only not there yet, but there used to be a much bigger registration edge for Democrats. And independents have this year overtaken both parties as the largest group of registrations, or not independents, NPAs, non-party affiliation, or in North Carolina, it's called the none. All right. Interesting, though, about Union County is that actually Republicans are outpacing Democrats in registration. If you look at what was prior registration versus what is now, and barely anybody who was a Republican or a none or a third party has changed their registration over to Democrat. I mean, barely nobody. You can see it there. But there have been hundreds and hundreds of people who have changed from Democrat or independent to Republican, or from Democrat to independent. All right. Or none. Again, I keep saying independent. It's really none. That's pretty neat, considering that we are looking at a state that is not like that. All right. And the overall state trend has not been that way. All right. Yeah, we did. We shared. What did I miss in the stream on Monday? A lot. It was a really cool stream. We were talking about polling, but then it was back to school. So we got into back to school photos, then got into baby photos. It was a good old time on the People's Pundit live stream on Locals. Yeah, it's cool. Check it out. And we'll be doing a lot more on Locals, at least once a week, at least. All right. Yeah. inflicting emotional. You believe these people, Joeylynn and her husband, are dealing with people who say that they got the same trauma, mental trauma that, PTSD. You can get PTSD from a lot of things, but for crying out loud, seeing a Trump flag gave you PTSD? I feel like you're giving me PTSD and you need to find somewhere else to live. It just sucks for people like me who remember when, yeah, we argued in politics, but we weren't insane. Weren't totally insane. All right. All right. So with that in mind, I want to explain to people what I mean when I say that, things have to be, adjusted, or how we do the weighting. All right. For instance, let's stop the screenshot. That's got the crosstabs in it. What do I mean by that? Okay. Imagine your overall sample is 48% male, 52% female, as roughly ours is. All right. But you may look by region, let's say. Okay. And in the Northeast, men are 57% and women are 43%. Then your Northeastern sample, if you don't weight by, there's match propensity. I like propensity, proportionate, right? If you don't check and make sure, which you can clearly see here, there is a issue. So the South is going to look more Democratic. Okay. The North is going to look more Republican. It doesn't simply work to weight overall for gender, weight overall for region, rake them all, and then expect them to iron out. It doesn't work that way. So when I said before, Republicans were strongly approve, 3%, somewhat approve, 7%. No, they're not. Nope, they're not. And you have to go. So people always ask me why it takes so long. You have to group all these and then do it. And it can take a while. Not to mention, all of that is really ugly when it first comes in. For instance, let's check out education. All right. Here's a good example. See how pretty this looks right now? Isn't that so pretty? It doesn't come in looking like that. It's like high school or less, secondary school, right? This is pretty simple and to go down. But what's one that's probably really difficult? Looks ugly. Employment I clean up too. I mean, they're all really get cleaned up, but marital, that gets got. Some of these are really come into because the text value in the survey is much longer. Not to mention, it doesn't just say gender. It says, what is your gender? And so I try to explain so that you have to make it look pretty and make it look ready for everybody to digest, right? But this is a good example right here, as would something like area be, okay? Where, maybe and I said to Laura, she was like, what's the problem? I was like, right? Because in urban areas we're too male, rural areas we're too female. And it's like, if you get in this imbalance like that, then it's going to throw it off. It's also, by the way, why don't you like to wait for party ID? Because and somebody had said, what's going on with Tudor Dixon, and then brought up the Trafalgar poll. Actually, Robert answered that question on Twitter perfectly. It's not going to be D plus whatever. First of all, an initial problem with waiting for party, very simple. How do you know what to wait for in Michigan? How do you know what to wait for in Virginia? Secretary of State, they don't tell you. There's no party registration. Right? So therefore, you're left with, if you're looking for cold hard data outside of self-reported, you're left with primary participation. Right? And you're left with self-identification. No state is going to look the same if you're just going to go to exit polls and wait based on exit polls. So like, oh no, I think Republicans should be more. It says 32. I'm going to weight them up to 36, and Democrats are 37. I don't think that's right. I'm going to weight them down to 34. Based on what? That's why I tell you all the time, I can't stand it when people weight by party and like presidential vote. Well, what if they didn't vote in the prior presidential election? You're weighting with missing values. It's not going to work. Our database rejects that, as it should, because the math doesn't work. How did I know in Virginia? Let's see. Let's take a look at Virginia's 2020 exit polls, for instance. Okay. Type in Virginia. Come on, David. You know I'm on the show. Stop binging me with crap. Let's take a look at Virginia exit polls. Of course they endorse Mark Kelly. The National Review is not a Republican outlet. Anybody who works for National Review is... I don't know when people are going to learn. They're not legitimate. That's why nobody reads them anymore. I mean, they're legitimate. They're legitimate Democrats. They have always been Democrats. Bill Kristol is a Democrat. His daddy was a communist. Anyway, DC suburbs, 30%. Central Virginia, the mountain range, 20. Well, the mountain range in 2021 was slightly more. All right, but let's just go down a party for a second. Okay. Democrat 36, Republican 34. Fox News voter analysis, I believe, has it at D+6. We had it at D+4 in 2020. All right. But, the CNN exit poll showing at D+2. But in 2021, it was not. It was even. Well, if I would have waited based on the exit polls from the prior election, I'd have been wrong. Suffolk University, USA Today. Oh, yeah. They were wrong because you have to let the electorate tell you what it's going to look like. If you wait, and actually, I should share this with you. I know people are going to be like, Pew, Ranch, but it was a good study. The variables that you wait for have the highest impact. Obviously. And different methods, it depends on whether you're using an opt-in sample online, you're using a random sample by phone, using a random sample SMS, right? It really does depend on what techniques you use to wait to get there. But in none of them am I going to wait for party. When you weight these other variables, and MarketSite tells us what it is. I mean, it makes it very easy. But I wait for age, gender, race and ethnicity, region, education. When you do that, it realigns other variables. In that case, party. So maybe your raw sample will come in and it's like D+7. And then when you wait for those other variables and it realigns, it may be R+1. And that doesn't even factor in the voter model. By the way, this poll is at least going to be R+1. I'm going to be a little bit nice. I told you it's pre-Labor Day. I'm going to be a little bit nice. And I'm going to not impose a heavy likely voter screen. It is a likely voter screen, but I'm not going to impose a super, super heavy one. In fact, let me see if I can find it real quick. Let's see about how many people. There will be some who will be screened. But I mean, I'm not going to just get rid of everybody who said that they were, unlikely or 30% likely or more. I'm not going to do that. Somebody had asked me, why do you do it the way you do it? Why don't you do it based on like a 1 through 10 scale? And that's a great question. And some people can, and some people do, and that's fine. Everyone has a different likely voter model. Not that I want Laura to come in here and kick me in the teeth for giving away too many secrets, but I'll tell you that we have, you hear her screaming. We have had, I'm not going to, Laura. We have had a lot more success doing what is equivalent to 100% certain, 90%, 100% certain that you're going to vote in the voter file models that you guys see, for instance, that we do. That's machine learning. We try to mirror the voter file as much as possible so we can have a grip on everything, all right? There'll be about 5%, a little less than 5% in this likely voter model who say they're unlikely to vote, meaning the odds are greater than 0 but less than 50-50. That's really like the 30 to 50 in the Aristotle modeling we do. Locals, you know what we're talking about. Likely, simply likely, not highly likely, but simply likely would just be a greater than 50-50 probability, right? More likely than not is really that standard. And then certain is, damn well, you're coming out to vote. That's going to be at least 75% of this sample. And then about 20% will be that more likely than not. And then 5 is still considered unlikely. I'm just not really ready to screen them out yet. If, as we get closer, especially after Labor Day, that will shrink. As it shrunk ahead as we were polling Virginia. What did we poll Virginia? 3 times last year? 2 or 3? The first poll, which had them tied, or almost tied basically, was still with that unlikely component of being about 5%. By the time we got there, it was really small. It was like 2 or less. So over time, we tighten it a little bit more as we're more comfortable. Well, at least with as we have a higher degree of confidence that we know some of those people are not going to vote. And we've been doing that way since 2016, when in places like Ohio, for instance, we screened out people that, otherwise didn't look like likely voters, didn't sound like likely voters, didn't have the history of likely voters. And in the end, lo and behold, these damn people showed up in southeastern Ohio, and it was not Trump plus 3 or 5. It was Trump plus like 8. And of course, it was more than just southeastern Ohio, but a lot of those other pollsters screened those people out. In the Republican primaries in Ohio and Pennsylvania, we saw that happen to everyone. Emerson College in Arizona and in Wisconsin. Maybe if it was a traditional Republican electorate, Karen Taylor Robson would have won that election. Maybe. But it was not going to be a traditional electorate. So Carrie Lake won. In Wisconsin, Cleefish plus 2? Nope. Michaels won that pretty comfortably. So that's the danger of screening out people too early. And that's the need to get something before Labor Day so you can kind of get a baseline of how many of them there are. And then after Labor Day, do those, has that group shrunk at all? Or, are they still there and they're taking surveys, but they're more sure they don't intend to vote. Their vote history suggests it's probably true. They're not even 2 out of 4s. So you start to tighten that screen a little bit. All right. Is this making sense to you guys? I hope it's making sense to you, but it'll also be more favorable. And I can tell you, I wonder if we bring up next thing, how enthusiastic are you to vote? This is a great example. All right, let's see. I don't know why it keeps putting everything to the end, but it is. Bear with me. How enthusiastic are you to vote? Let me pull this up, and then I'm going to scroll through a couple variables, and you'll see what I'm talking about. All right. Hispanics, too, by the way, look much more liberal than they really are. All right, let me close the editor so you guys can see a little bit better. Let's look at enthusiasm, okay? And generally speaking, the most intense version of your, whatever scale you're using, the most intense version of your scale is really what matters the most, okay? It likely is, yeah, okay, or extremely, moderately, not at all, slightly. We have very, I didn't put it in order yet, but very is the second. Very can matter. It can, but for the most part, what really is going to make a difference here, guys, and I got to scroll out more, is simply the extremely. And that is what people have been, measuring for quite a long time. All right. Here we have, let me get a sip of water. Here we have extremely. Look at the difference between men and women. That's first and foremost while I open up my Ascension. Peek at men and women, the difference there. If this was true in like a state, say like Wisconsin, where as recently as 2018, men actually outvoted women. Well, what do you think that's going to do to turnout? You think Wisconsin's really going to be 47% men, 53% women? Simply because that's what the voter file says in total registration universe it is? Then how is Walker routinely driven 51% male electorates? This is how. Certainty, likelihood, along with enthusiasm. All right, so obviously this is becoming a trend. There are, 3 surveys in a row now that show that men are significantly, and that's what the blue is, men are significantly more likely to say they are extremely enthusiastic about voting in November than women. Here again, roughly an 11-point lead. Let's just call it 11. Let's round and call it 11. You can see when, again, Virginia was another perfect example. Everybody was like, 18 to 29-year-olds were almost 20% in Virginia in 2020. You have them at like 9 or something. And I'm like, they're not going to vote. They're not meeting the likely voter criteria. So when you see maybe there'll be 12% in this poll, maybe. I'm not kidding. I'm comfortable doing it. If you think 18 to 29-year-olds are going to rock out like 16 to 18% share of the electorate in a midterm election because what? Dobbs overturned Roe v. Wade? You're sniffing coke, man. You're tweaking. That's not happening. Anyway, 25% of 18 to 24-year-olds said they were extremely enthusiastic. 39.6 said they were, of 25 to 29, extremely enthusiastic. It even dips here a little bit in the 30 to 39 region where it falls back to extremely. And by the way, this is bad for Republicans because this is why they're underperforming. If we were going to bring up a nice little juxtaposition from the last 2 surveys with generic ballots, you would see that Republicans in them, those last 2 were doing a lot better among 30 to 39s than they are in this survey. That's simply because it's more of these people saying, you know what, I don't know if I want to vote for these guys. That's what's happening. They didn't decide, you know what, I totally trust Democrats with COVID now. You know what, because of Dobbs, I'm voting Democrat and the hell with my pocketbook. That is not what's happening. These are people who are just like, I'm not feeling the love anymore from you people, so I don't know what I'm going to do. 40 to 49 starts to get a little bit higher now. See what it's doing. 50 to 64, we're in the 50s now. And then, of course, seniors always, typically, outpacing everybody else. Let's check out race. White, not Hispanic, the highest percentage, 49% extremely enthusiastic. Black and African Americans, 44.8, not bad. Not bad for black voters in a midterm election. Not bad. Hispanics take a 0.1 of a percentage point lead in the extreme enthusiasm category. Look out! Eventually, Hispanics will take over black and African Americans as the second largest demographic racial group in voting electorate. It's inevitable. It's going to happen. They just haven't been flexing their political muscles yet. But they have the numbers to do it. The real difference is that they don't vote at rates as high as African Americans. By the way, for the liberal who keeps trolling Robert K. Haley and Qantas, that Twitter account, Qantas Balls, he keeps trying to explain it to her. She's never going to listen because she doesn't care. She doesn't want to learn. She's just a liberal who wants the poll to say what she wants it to say. 71% white in a midterm election could even underestimate the white vote. It could be as high as 73. I got news for her and everybody else. The census thing that she and others keep sending, I have to say this. It's rudimentary, but apparently I have to explain it. The share of the voting electorate that a racial group makes up is not the same as the rate by which they vote as far as their share of the eligible voting population. If, for instance, 68% of eligible black voters voted, their turnout rate was 68%, that does not mean they're going to be 68% of the electorate. Just like white voters, if they come out 58.9% of the electorate, they still, or 58.9% turnout rate, meaning 58.9% of those who are eligible to vote, of eligible population, voted, they still could be 71, 73, whatever it may be, percent of the overall electorate. It depends on what the other turnout rates were. So maybe it's the Census Bureau that's she's certainly not alone. I get it all the time. Maybe it's the Census Bureau that's confusing people, but turnout rates are not the same as the share of the electorate that a specific group makes up. Asians, not at all enthusiastic. This is a kind of a big deal. Asians are typically pretty pumped to vote. They vote in decent rates, make up about 3%. They're looking more like 2.5 in this one. They just don't appear to be juiced. American Indian and Alaskan Native even surpass whites, as do Native Hawaiian and Pacific Islander, but as you can see when weighted down especially, very, very, very small populations, shares. And then other, at 33.4. Let's take a look at Democrats. You can clearly see here that Republicans have a 6-point enthusiasm edge over Democrats. All right. And independent third party, you can see they are always lower. This is not out of the realm of normal. This is what happens all the time. All right. What else do we got here? All right. You can see conservatives are more juiced to vote than liberals. You can see that. All right. Why? I mean, when you look at different area types, rural and suburban voters actually are a little bit less extreme. They're all basically on par. 48 for urban, 47 for suburban, 47 for rural. But this, by the way, should tell you, since we know conservatives are more likely, we know Republicans are more likely, this should be a red flag to you that I haven't done, what's it called? I haven't done propensity yet before ranking. Okay. That should be a red flag, all right? And that's why we do all these demographics. So many people bust my chops and they're like, you're too demographic heavy. All the juice is in the demographics. All right? All the juicy goodness is in the demographics. You can see the South, which is more Republican, is slightly more likely than the Northeast, which is more Democrat. The battleground Midwest and the West is the highest, even though it is maybe 20% of the vote. 20, 22, whatever it may be for a given cycle. All right. So I know we're at the 130 mark here. And I have to do my spiel. I just want to show you guys like generally where it's coming down. So overall, what it is telling me is I do expect when it's all said and done that Republicans are obviously going to lead on the generic ballot. But I say that because it's going to be a smaller lead. It's just that look who the signs are. And notice that there are two things I want you to do. Look at who the undecideds are, who we'll talk about them. That's number one. And number two is look at the trend. Even before, there's no waiting work that needs to be done that's going to improve Democrats' position. So that means Democrats didn't really rise from the last generic ballot. They were generally in the same damn area they were before. What happened is that Republicans fell on the generic ballot. Okay? All right. With that in mind. When we come back from the break, we're going to take a look at specifics when it comes to cost of living. Food and groceries has, once again, surpassed gas prices as the number one reason why people are concerned about inflation. And those who are inflation voters, what did they choose? Which we mimic the CPI, right? Because they know they've been looking. Food shortages, can happen in the U.S. Experts wrote this recently as July. Drought, inflation, and even now, new policies are pushing America's food supply near its breaking point. That's why survival food is more important than ever. Create your own stockpile of the best-selling 4-page survival food kits. Laura and I use it ourselves. We absolutely use it ourselves. All right? The kits are compact, they're sturdy, water resistant, and they stack easily. It's not ordinary food. We're talking about 25-year super survival food, hand-packed in a family-owned facility right here in the US of A. They have different delicious breakfasts, lunches, dinners. The stew's my favorite. You can make these meals in less than 20 minutes. Just add boiling water, simmer, and serve. Go to 4patriots.com, links in the description, /TPP to get your 3-month survival kit. Again, 4patriots.com /TPP. It's in the description to get that kit today. You'll get their famous guarantee for an entire year after your order, plus 10 free gifts and free shipping. They're called 4 Patriots because a portion of every sale is donated to charity, all right, who support our veterans and their families. And honestly, I got to say, like I said, I love it. Laura loves it. The kids love it. Go to 4patriots.com /TPP. Build your own stockpile today. Very, very easy to stick in a closet like we do. Bit of preppers, and it wouldn't. I would not miss the stew. Okay. All right, the kids. Then you can get. You got kids. Okay, got cocoa, coffee for the adults, high nutrient juice drinks, good stuff. It's all in there. Just go check it out. Watch the video, scroll through, read everything about that. The free gifts change. This was one of them for us, the Freedom Flame. The gifts change as time goes on. We've bought multiple of these packages. Multiple. I'm not going to be left high and dry, I'll tell you that. All right. Let's see. What do we got here? I'll tell you what we got. We got cost of living information to go over. All right. Where are we? Do we have it? Did I put it in here? Yes, I did. Cost of living detail. And like I said, again, in our polling, immigration is basically on parity with abortion. Even though abortion did rise, it rose among educated voters who are liberal. That's who it rose. Shocker. Big shocker. Cost of living and inflation is still number 1. It's not even close. And jobs in the economy is still number 2. Combined, they make up the most important voting issues for about half of the electorate. All right. Let's see. Independence, no real big move because of Dobbs over to abortion. Let's take a look at what people say, and then we'll go through a couple of these groups. All right. Variables in there. Women are slightly more likely than men, but overall 46% said food and groceries when we asked them specifically regarding cost of living and inflation. Which would you say most concerns you? 46% flat said food and groceries, or at least it's going to change somewhat, but it's not going to change to the point where there's going to be a different leader on the leaderboard. Maybe gas and fuel surpasses housing and shelter because of the regional impact of who's choosing what year, but we'll see. We'll see. Overall, though, again, you might notice Joe Biden's transportation and vehicles have yet to hit 1/10. Medical, healthcare, 4. Taxes. Pay the taxes, Governor. 7.6. Utilities, electric, 5.6. You can see men are more worried about utilities than women, slightly. Men are more worried about taxes than women, slightly. They're pretty close on healthcare, but slightly more females say healthcare. Double the amount of females. Double the amount of female voters cited housing and shelter than men. Interesting. Yet, almost double the number of men cited gas and fuel than women. Should I get in trouble with some kind of sexist comment right now? Nope. I'll leave it to you to decide. Let's look by race. Whites and blacks, almost even when it comes to food and groceries, citing food and groceries. Hispanics are split between food and groceries, and housing and shelter. All right. Asians, a little bit less, about the same as Hispanics. All right. Just pressures. I'm going to pass these in other. There's going to be their own variable for other because sample so small. Right. Okay. Gas and fuel. White voters are more concerned about gas than most others, but Hispanics are right 3-4 points behind them, roughly. Okay. Housing and shelter, African Americans and Hispanics are more concerned about, and in fact, minorities in general, about housing and shelter inflation rather than whites. Interesting. Consider the study that we went over with Steve Cortez. Oh, I didn't get to play that for you on his header thing. I did retweet it, but he went over some numbers the other day, which are frankly terrifying. There is a serious problem where you have people not being able to pay their rent, whether they're homeowners or renters. They can't pay that fee for the month. They can't pay that cost for the month for housing and shelter. And then also the percentage of business owners, small business owners, who said that they can't make rent the next month and can't cut they can't cut the check for the bills. This is a real problem. When you have such large percentages of people saying, I'm probably going to be foreclosed on next month, it's a real problem. All right, how big is this one right here? 48 seconds. There's another one, too, I wanted to play for you. Yes. Oh, that's the other one. It's the same thing. Okay, I missed the other one, but I'll have to find it because it's a huge deal. This is a crisis waiting to happen. And the voters have been telling us it's going to for a while. Nobody listened. Nobody's listening. We're completely paralyzed here, folks. We really are. It's not good. It's no bueno. All right. So you see the picture by race. Whites are more concerned about gas and food, while African Americans are more concerned about food and shelter. All right. Or I shouldn't even just say African Americans. It's all non-white voters share the concerns of the white electorate that food and grocery prices are out of control, ridiculous. But more of them share concerns over housing and shelter than they do with whites, who are more diffuse, but certainly more skewed toward gas and fuel prices. All right. By party, let's go by detail. Republicans and independents alike. Republicans and Democrats alike concerned about food and groceries. However, Republicans are more concerned about gas prices than Democrats. People are going to be like, that's because I work more. Yeah, kind of. And then more Democrats and more independents. This bodes well for Democrats, even though they're the ones who are in charge. Housing and shelter is still a bigger concern for independents than they are concerned about gas prices now. So Republicans should watch that. Republicans, of course, are much more concerned about taxes than anybody else, of course, right? Healthcare is more of an independent voter issue, right? You can actually see third-party voters are most hurt by increased food prices. Again, small samples. All right, what else we got here? Utilities and electric, Republicans and independents being slightly more concerned about than Democrats, but they're still pretty close. Okay. By ideology, by area. Let's go by area and region. Let's do region first. The Midwest is the most concerned about food and groceries, followed by the South. So you have the battleground Midwest, followed by the Republican South, being more concerned about food or groceries than others. When it comes to gas prices, remember what I said before? When it comes to gas prices, the Northeast is more concerned than the rest of the country now. Even the West, the Northeast slightly by 3 points exceeds the West, even though California is a ridiculous leader in ridiculous prices of gas. Housing and shelter, again, a big problem in the Northeast. That's probably because they don't have an economy, yet they have very expensive houses. On and on and on. You guys get the picture here. We're the Republican South and the liberal, the Republican but not taxed South, not heavily taxed South, along with it, well, slightly more, but still look at the Northeast, which is taxed at death. You almost got to kind of look at that and say, well, no, it's on you. Who the hell's electing these state governments? Right. It's hard to feel bad for them. Right? Am I right? Don't bitch at me in Connecticut. Who are you voting for? I'm just saying. Yeah, so there we have it. Let's look by area real quick. So, urban America is less likely to cite food and groceries than suburban and rural America, who are identical at 47%. Rural Americans are much more likely to be concerned about gas and fuel than are urban and suburbans. Again, should be another bit of a flag. If you're kind of like smelling what I've been cooking all show, you should be seeing some of these flags when I'm talking about with weighting. So I can try to understand. I'll do it slow. We'll add a little bit more each show, but I'm trying to explain a little bit more about weighting, what it is, why it's done, and how you can kind of maybe spot some flaws on your own. Even though I don't want you running around on skewing the polls. Who cares? Just ignore them, but this is a great education. So when you see it, you're like, yeah, that's a load of crap. All right, housing and shelter, biggest problem in urban America. No shocker there, right? No shocker there. Taxes, suburbs have it all the way. If you're a Republican establishment person, you'd be thinking, well, then I'm going to make a pitch to lower taxes for suburban moms. And yeah, that's not going to work. It's number one, it's not enough. It's not a dominating share of the electorate. It's number one. Number two, they're going to throw something else that's far more inspirational than the old dry GOP, I'm going to give you a tax cut routine. Nobody's buying that anymore. Nobody's buying what you're selling. All right, we are at 1:45. I did promise to get some of this stuff out here, but anybody remember what our right track, wrong track was for last public polling project? Let's check it out, actually. I think either, regardless of what happens here, I think it's pretty obvious that, right track is still terrible, probably rose a little bit. Wrong track is still terrible, but it's probably going to rise a little bit. I mean, improve a little bit, I should say. Let's see. It's loading. It's doing its thing. Oh, yeah. We were at a historic high last time. But it still, look, that was still 22.8 right direction, 70.1 wrong direction. Oh, hell. When I'm done, it may end up like that. It may. But for right now, it's not. It's 65% wrong, 24.8% right. And 10.5 or 10.8. What is that? 10.8. We're undecided. That's an increase in undecided, a decrease in wrong track. It is not a stamp that they think things are getting better. All right? Let me make that very clear. The people who were saying wrong track are now just undecided. There is no significant increase in the percentage of people who said right track. It's like 2 points as of right now. And that 2 point probably will not remain. All right. So I do have something to do. I'm going to, trying to get something from Pennsylvania out, trying to get this public polling project out, which of course then we can use to talk about it more. Locals in my travels tomorrow. Maybe I will try to get a little stream in where we can go on and do something extra, all right? But we'll be traveling most of the day tomorrow, so it will be tough. And Friday, there's a show. Do not miss it. We will have a lot to talk about on Friday. Do not miss Friday, okay? All right. Be there or be square, but don't be in my Twitter feed like, hey, what was this? Watch the show Friday, noon Eastern Standard Time. Keep your eyes peeled to Creative Destruction Media, which you can find at cdm.press. And I think we're going to start with releasing the presidential vote first, the rematch in Pennsylvania. All right? I think we're going to start there first. Okay. With that in mind, I'm going to take us out. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Don't forget, follow me on Truth and Getter at People's Pundit, on Twitter at People's_Pundit, Rumble and YouTube. Sign up for both. Why not? Sign up for both. Get crazy. Make some bad decisions, right? Hit the notification bell. That'll let you know when we're going to go live. But the best place to follow me is, of course, right here. Non-locals, peoplespundit.locals.com. And stay tuned with everything that we, of course, have going on. Ray, stay tuned. I'm not sure when one of the odds is going to be coming back. I know Robert is pretty busy, but if I know Robert, by Labor Day, he's going to want to get back in the swing of things and start ramping it up. All right, so I got that, I got that in the pipeline, okay? All right, so I think I got all those explanations. Don't miss on Sunday, 3 p.m. if you're a supporter on Locals, 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Mists of Empire. We just got done with Victorian Britain. All right. Great book. Great book. Not saying I buy it all. I don't. I play devil's advocate the whole damn time. But if you don't know what Mists of Empires are, you've got to learn them like you're Charlemagne. Okay? And don't forget them because you'll know them when you hear it. Lindsey Graham is a huge pusher of Myths of Empire. And once you know it, once you learn to see it, you can't unsee it. And it will be a lesson you will keep with you for the rest of your life. The rest of your politics observant lives. All right? Woo woo. All right. Here we go. So we will go now. Have a safe rest of the Wednesday. Keep an eye peeled on my socials for more results. Thanks for watching Inside the Numbers. Deuces. Deuces.
How much you wanna bet that I can get you back inside your head before the summer ends and spread a little love. Just for a little fun, I'll make you come back to me before the rise of every sun. Baby, it's meant to be. I know you got a man, but he don't understand. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. Rhythm in our love, it's impressive, excessive. You can't make this stuff up. My chest beats, it's restless, wakes the neighbors up above. Yeah, baby, come and show me love. Baby, come and show me love. Because you're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah.
Take a one-way ride, steal us away to find a place we can hide. It wouldn't take much to disappear for a night, just to give in to the need and leave it all behind.
'Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. 'Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now